Good evening. Welcome to our meeting of Council and Committee of the Whole for February 21st, 2023. Bienvenue à notre réunion de Conseil pour le 21 février. To begin with, as we meet, I would like to take a moment to recognize the importance on the land on which we are gathered. The municipality of West Nipissing respectfully acknowledges that we are located on the homelands of the Anishinaabe peoples, on the traditional territory of the Nipissing, Temagami, and Dokis First Nations covered by the Robinson-Huron Treaty. We honor and recognize their historical connection to the land and value their significant contribution to shaping and strengthening our communities. We do this acknowledgement to reaffirm our commitment and responsibility towards reconciliation and improving our understanding of local Indigenous people and their cultures. I will call the meeting to order and take any declarations of pecuniary interest. None. We'll move to item 3.2 to adopt the agenda. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that the agenda for the meeting of Council held on February 21st, 2023 be approved as presented.
Questions or comments? All in favor? Carried. Next, we'll move to item 4, and I'm very happy to welcome a delegation from West Nipissing Pride. And presenting is Monsieur Michel Javet. Bienvenue.
Hello, everyone.
Oh, do we have another introduction?
I'm Ryan Morin.
Hi, Ryan. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having us tonight. I'll just start by introducing us. We are West Nipissing Pride. We've been a committee since the early spring of 2020, which is right at the beginning of the pandemic. So we've been a remote committee since the beginning. I'm happy to be here tonight with Ryan, my mother Lynn, Sebastien, Roxanne, and Alex, who are all part of the committee tonight. So our humble, remote beginnings allowed us to slowly develop while maintaining a strong visibility in West Nipissing and its surroundings. I'm really happy to see the progress over the years. And with our fourth year beginning, we are aiming to grow with the community and offer some new programming for 2023 and 2024. So I'll just pass it over to Ryan with our mission and a bit of about the importance of having a Pride committee in a small community like West Nipissing.
Yeah. Our mission statement is West Nipissing Pride's goal is to promote unity, inclusion, awareness of sexuality and gender diversity. We aim to create a sense of community and safe places for two-spirit LGBTQ plus individuals, their families, and their allies. The importance of having a Pride committee in West Nipissing is to increase visibility in the rural areas of Northern Ontario, to support youth and queer people who have less access to resources due to our geographical isolation, as well as the impact from the pandemic, and to offer a sense of security to queer people.
Speaking of visibility, we actually have some mugs just to offer to each staff member tonight, just to put on your desk, just to offer visibility for queer people of West Nipissing and just to show your support. And we also brought with us some stickers that we encourage to put up either on municipal buildings across West Nipissing, just to show, that it is a secure space for queer people to access. They're really big. They fit a lot of coffee. Alrighty, so I'll just move forward to press our following programming for 2023. So June is the month of Pride every year, and we for the past 2 years have done a proclamation on June 1st at 12 p.m. So we would like to request to do it again this year and make it an annual celebration at Minnehaha Bay. So having the mayor declare June as Pride Month would be part of the request, the flag raising as well. And the community at large is invited to the event. We hope to have some students and youth to speak at the event as well. All municipal employees are invited and council as well. Any other councillor that would like to speak at the event is also invited to do so. And like I said, we're requesting to make this an annual celebration. Our second request would be to install the pride flags at the Minnehaha Bay and downtown Sturgeon Falls, the little flag posts, and anywhere else in West Nipissing that have space for a flag, like in the Cache Bay Community Center, for example, or in Verner, flag posts as well. So any municipality or any town and municipality to have kind of a queer representation or support would be really appreciated. And our third request is our big event this year. We're really aiming to have a Pride Parade, and we'd like to organize in partnership with the municipality of West Nipissing on June 9th at 1 p.m. So we're requesting assistance with road closures, the municipal library, other municipal organizations' participation, promotion of the event, and any other assistance that the municipality is willing to offer. So aspects that we are specifically also requesting is for security, promotion, planning and logistics, if you would like to make a float, and also, again, mayoral and councillor speeches to kick off the celebration of the parade. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, I'll gladly take them as well.
Thank you so much, both Ryan and Michelle, for being here tonight. That's awesome. We really appreciate you coming in, and we appreciate the work that the Pride Committee is doing. Are there any questions for the group from our members of council?
Maybe just through you, Madam Chair, just a comment. I attended your flag raising ceremony last year, and it was really nice to hear people's stories. And I think it's important that we support a group like this so that people can keep expressing themselves the way they feel. And I think that's really important. So thank you.
Thank you. Questions or comments? Councillor Rousseau?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you, I just wanted to say I know I've been in attendance for some of the events that have taken place, and it's great to see the spirit. And I know there's been a lot of work put into growing, the initiative and the awareness, and it's great to see the continued efforts that you're putting into it, and appreciate you coming to council to look to partner and get support for growing it even further. So I just want to say thanks for your input here today.
Any others? Okay. Again, I would like to thank you. We've had a conversation just shortly after I was inaugurated about how I feel about the Pride movement in our community and how important it is for young people, for older people, for people being able to feel at home in their own community, in their own selves. So I would like to, on behalf of all the council, thank you as president and the rest of the committee, because I know that you've put in a lot of hard work, you've done a lot of fundraising, you've done a lot of awareness raising, and it doesn't go unnoticed. And for every step you take, there's one more person in this community who feels comfortable in themselves. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
With that, we will move on to the next portion of our agenda, which is our committee of the whole. 5.1, we do have two items under Public Works. So I will pass that over to the chair, Councillor Gagne.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you. So Mr. Vignal submitted a staff report to the councillors in regards to the Highway 17 on Levac. So the request has been put in to MTO to review the request, and it is their ownership of the 100% of the highway there. So once we do get a report from the MTO in regards to putting streetlights in that intersection. If it is accepted, they will get back to us and give us an update. So that's at least gives a clear picture to the residents that put in the petition to have streetlights at that intersection. So open up if anybody has any questions, comments. Conseiller Tessier.
Yes,
Conseiller
through you, Councillor Gagné. Do we have an idea of the time frame that we get a reply from the MTO regarding their assessment or?
There's no time frame currently, so it's open unless you want to add something. Councillor Barbeau.
No, typically when they do traffic counts, they'll want to look at certain seasonal approaches and that kind of thing. So it won't be a short timeframe. Likely, my estimation would be probably end of summer at the earliest.
If I may, I had another question regarding the traffic. I know the speed limit was reduced to 80. Is there something else that we can add, like a traffic metered speed when you travel and you got that, just a minute, what it's called here. The traffic signs? Do we have?
So I certainly, I haven't seen it done on the Canada that much when you're monitoring your signs, but I think it's important for council to know that that's not a municipal road. Our connecting links, our link ends on the west side, right at the Comfort Inn. So we have really no jurisdiction over putting anything there, and they're pretty regulated as to what they will allow and not allow. Certainly we can make a request, but I wouldn't be thinking that if they're looking at it, if there's a warrant for stop signs for collision, they're probably going to be looking at that, and I'm sure they don't, they wouldn't be doing what you're suggesting. But if it's council's wish, we can reach out to them and ask if they would. It certainly isn't in our jurisdiction.
No, okay. Through the Rural Ontario Municipal Association, when I attended that conference, I did speak with the company and they said that as long as it's within our municipality, we were able to put those. It's just information.
Would those be the booths that are trying to sell council or something? Yeah. I'm just
No,
kidding.
but I don't know all the rules.
They're right in
but-
general, within our municipality
Yeah.
and our municipal roads, we're able to do it. But within municipalities where there are provincial highways, the jurisdiction is with the Ministry of Transportation. So for us, that would be in our jurisdictions. We have many provincial highways, right? Highway 64, 575, 539, and 17. Any of those where it's in the provincial jurisdiction, they wouldn't have the authority. That is a provincial permit.
Okay, thank you.
Merci, Conseiller Tessier. Conseiller Saint-Louis.
So through you, Chair, I think, would it be possible then, Mr. Barbeau, to ask the OPP? So I know that they have black boxes that they will set up on several areas, several roads and so on and so forth to get, to see the speeds as per Councillor Tessier is requesting. Would that be a possibility for this council to approach the OPP of West Nipissing to put one of those boxes on the highway?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, that's different. That's a data gathering tool that is under the control of our provincial police, and certainly that we can make that request to the board or to the inspector directly. What I was commenting on were, in my case, 120. So, but yeah, those visible signs, there's a lot of red tape to go through. And certainly that would be to get some data. That certainly could be something.
Okay, thank you.
Conseiller Saint-Louis. Autre question? Conseiller Padrin.
Oui, M. Gagné. Juste une question. Là. Sur la page 10, ça dit you have been monitoring the subject intersection annually to determine if it's warranted or whatever. What do they mean? Do you know? I guess the amount of accidents or
I wouldn't be able to answer to the specifics, but certainly when we would be looking at it, back in the day, we would be looking at motor vehicle accident collisions, close calls, how many attempts, were there traffic stops for people doing improper left turns or right turns or whatever turn. All of those things would come into play. The majority of it, though, from a warrants perspective, meaning does it warrant it, it is highway safety. They do look at traffic accidents.
Because I think it's, I'm glad to see that petition come in. It should have been in a long time ago. I have had 2 near miss at that corner. It's, how do I say that? Let's not wait till somebody dies in the, like it happened in Hager, then they put up a flashing light, you know?
Yeah,
So
just
put pressure on
flashing light,
them.
What's interesting is if anybody is, so it might be apropos or timely. If anybody has have been to Sudbury and hadn't noticed before, in Wanapitei, right before the river, where people are coming off of Highway 5, something that goes to Wana. There are new lights there, and there are new lights going to the Garson-Falconbridge Highway as well that were just recently installed in the last 2 months for those reasons. Certainly we'll be bringing that up. This is Mr. Remillard's contact. Once we contact the OPP, we can have a little bit more fulsome discussion to see if there's anything we can do to expedite it, or perhaps even have a delegation at one of our conferences if we want to expedite it.
Just to add one more thing, I will be coming to with one for Werner at the RL corner. It's same idea. Thanks.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Autre question? Any other questions? Good, thank you very much. For the next item, which was for winter sand for private road. So Conseiller Cochine had requested if there's a possibility to put in some, I guess, big bins of, have some sand in it. And Monsieur Rimillard responded to his recommendation. It would be tedious for his public works to even fill the barrels. There is public, not public, but there are services and companies that do offer sanding services at a cost to be able to do that. So his recommendations were to stay status quo, and the residents that take care of their private driveways, as pretty much everybody does in West Nipissing. So I'll open it up for any questions or comments by any councillors.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair. Ça avait été apporté parce que avec l'hiver qui avançait, il y avait de plus en plus de préoccupations de certains citoyens. Entre autres, quartier 8, on peut s'imaginer, il y a beaucoup de chemins privés. Chemin O'Brien, chemin Saint-Jean, puis là, la liste elle continue. Lakewood, ça en est un autre, là, par exemple. Donc, c'était en discussion avec Madame la mairesse et puis le directeur général. Ça avait été cru bon d'amener ça à la table pour discuter. Ça avait été une des options qui avait été discutée initialement, mais là, sachant, c'est ça, là, que c'est pas... des fois, on paper, it sounds really good, but in practice, it's something, completely different. So, thank you to Mr. Rimillard for his report. I guess it was a practice in the past, and that's what I was being approached upon, it, that it was a practice in the past and just had stopped. And for valid reasons too. Liability is a big issue. At best, we don't want the municipality to be involved liability-wise on private roads or private laneways. But at the same time, it's just I guess a matter of public safety as well. I've heard some issues that sometimes there's I'm just thinking, and that's just me out loud, but when there's an emergency, no matter if it's a municipal road or just a road, it's still a road at the end of the day. So I've heard some issues where there was some emergency vehicles that couldn't, get on time. Some other incidents and instances as well. So maybe something, I guess, to explore or I guess find a solution later on, I guess.
Let's just point out that, I have the benefit of being here a long time. I don't recall it ever being a condoned practice. So it might be pre-amalgamation when you had roads boards. And if you had roads boards, there was a little bit more autonomy with the boards themselves, but I don't ever recall entering into the practice. I do recall individuals from one of the public works yards having an informal practice that we had to put an end to. Just because we can't just let people go in our yards and take our sand.
I'm totally in agreement, like with the machinery too, like if someone were
Right.
to get hurt, it's.
Yeah, but I don't ever recall it being condoned practice. I think it was around 2006, 2007 maybe, where we started providing winter maintenance to private roads as an add-on, and that started only then. And none of our service levels have changed since then.
Thank you.
Mr. Gagné, yes, before pre-amalgamation, there was some blue box used for unorganized roads. We had a lid, I remember on North South there was one. So I was thinking maybe for Mr. Cochin's sake, if a resident feel really strong about it, they could maybe, it would be, how do I say that, per site specific. It could come in and maybe try and work out something, have a barrel on top of the hill and with a cover, but it does work. There used to be some pre-amalgamation. Thanks.
As the memo does indicate, though, we just want to realize publicly that there is a sand salt mixture in our sand, and it has a tendency to cake if it's, so it's not as malleable as regular. I'm just letting you know that. But again, the other aspect is there are private sector companies who are offering that service right now. So that's one of the factors that we get into. So. I mean, private roads, there's some of them that are just never conducive to being assumed, but we do have a policy on the assumption of private roads that if you can get it close enough to a municipal standard and petition us, we will look at it and assume it. You mentioned O'Brien Road is our most recent road. That's actually now a public road up until the fork, but we've assumed that road. The other road that was assumed was Schmeikomo. That was assumed as well. And the individuals invested a significant amount of resources themselves to get it to a standard. Even if it isn't 66 feet wide, it was good enough for us and we assumed them anyway. So there is that option, and then we maintain the road as if it was one of ours at that point, both summer and winter.
Autre question? Any more questions? Good. So that sums up the portion. Madam Mayor?
Thank you very much, Councillor Gagné. The second portion of our committee of the whole this evening is our Community Services Committee. With that, I will pass the chair to Councillor Ravak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So first there's 4 items tonight, but the first one would be in regard to Cache Bay Trailer Park. So staff is looking for council to direct them on what to do moving forward with the Cache Bay Trailer Park. They, in the report, they gave us 3 options. Essentially, there's status quo, which is the municipality maintains ownership of the park and leases the premises to a third-party operator that in turn is responsible for the maintenance and the day-to-day operations. There's option 2, where the municipality maintains ownership of the park and runs the facility with municipal resources and staff. And then there's option 3, where the municipality sells the park and its assets, either as is or after doing an environmental assessment. So in the report, it is staff's recommendation that council supports option 3 to sell the park, because the options of retaining ownership of the park comes with a significant financial cost to the municipality for both infrastructure investments required and also for the continued operations. And by owning and operating the park, we're essentially competing with the private sector and doing so at a financial loss that ultimately has to be covered by the taxpayers of West Nipissing. So with that information, unless I missed something, if Mr. Lang or would like to add.
No, I think it's a fairly extensive report that council have had in their possession since last week or since last Friday. I prefer to respond to any questions and then I can move forward that way.
So we'll open up the floor to any questions, comments, concerns. I'll see you, St. Louis.
So through you, Chair Rivard. So option one, status quo, that obviously requires a third party. And if I'm not mistaken, in the past, the tenders will go out for the third party. So are we too late? Is that option still an option?
If we put something out, and we can put something out fairly quickly, if it's done relatively quickly, it really depends on whether it's a custodial relationship for just the year to finish the year. If it's a little bit longer, then it could be problematic to get a new supplier in place for the camping season being May. It'll be close. It would be tight if we moved right now and got some submissions. There's probably some interest. I know that the staff had provided with options with respect to trying to run it themselves with less service just to finish the year. Should council agree that perhaps we'd like to change the use of that property to or keep it as is, but have a private provider provide it. So it really depends. I mean, if it's council's wish to put out an RFP, we can, and we can probably expedite it.
Thank you. Conseiller St. Louis. Conseiller Colshine.
Thank you to you, Mr. Chair. I just had a question. So let's say if the municipality entertains option 3 and sells it off, parcel seems to be 226 acres. Would the municipality be severing the 8.5 acres for the park and retaining the remainder? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of valuable land that gives you a lot of shoreline or some frontage, though you can't really touch it because it's in a provincially significant wetland. Having said that, there is all of that acreage that is west of the park and heading along the water right up until the boathouses and all that. We own all of that. Certainly, we wouldn't be selling that without much more thorough analysis strategically as to what we want to do with that. I think that's prime land for the future. The idea, Councillor Coshine, I guess I'll give a bit of history. It was out of sight, out of mind back in the day when Monsieur Veilleux ran it. Then we had a new supplier who ran it well for 5 years and then decided not to renew, but then decided to come back. And lo and behold, then there was a controversy between all of the camp owners and this individual. And we, on numerous occasions, tried to inform the park tenants that we own the property, but we've leased out the operation to an operator. We don't get into we don't go tell Twigs how to prepare coffee either, right? So a lot of it were operator-tenant disputes. Some of the disputes the tenants had, though, I would acknowledge, have something to do with the state of parts of the facility, which are leasehold improvements, which is why the memo is suggesting that there is probably some significant future investment to maintain and upgrade the buildings and bring it back to a standard that would be acceptable. It's not imminent, but there are expenditures for that park that would be needed. In fact, I believe there's some expenditure that legally must be made now for about $50,000 dealing with the electricity at that. And there's been an order by I think it's is it ESA or TSSA?
Yes.
ESA.
Yeah.
So the Electrical Safety Authority. I have so many acronyms. And so there are investments that we're making right now. So I mean, whether to keep it or to sell it is obviously a political decision. If I were to enter into the politics, as you see, there's some discussion about how many sites there are. My understanding is there are 48 seasonal tenants there right now. There are approximately 60 sites that are potentially for seasonal, but there are 48 right now. And 38 of them are from out of town. 10 of them are our local residents. It might be off plus or minus one. The data we received on that, Mr. Poulain, is probably 6 months old, 5 months old, or recent.
Well, it's a list that the operator provides to us on a yearly basis. So
when did you provide those?
That would have been, I'm going to say, in August, more towards the end of the season.
Okay, so 6 months ago. Okay. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know if that answered your questions, Mr. Cushing.
Yep, thank you.
Councilor Pesky?
Yes, through you, Chair. With the operator having the lease agreement, are they responsible for all the operation that's in the park, such as the pool and the maintenance of the pool?
The major capital work for the pool in terms of major restructural repair or my understanding is a landlord issue, not a tenant or not an operator or a tenant issue. Where he would be responsible or she would be responsible, let's generalize this, is in the maintenance and the ongoing upkeep of the operation. And right, so.
Yeah, because from the petition, they have pictures of the maintenance of the pool, which was not being maintained, so.
Well,
Because that's a big
it's certainly
concern.
true, except that maybe some of the owners aren't blessed with the fact that the pool was already inoperable when he wasn't maintaining it. So we already had liner issues. There were already issues with the what do you call where you're walking on the decking, pool decking, and all kinds of things. So I think the pool wasn't in a state for a few years now where it was able to be brought back.
What time, like, because the operator had it for 5 years and then 3 years consecutively. So within that time frame, it deteriorated, but was it due to maintenance?
I don't have a lot of the details on that, other than to say that I know for quite a while now that pool had some issues and that the operator was working with staff with respect to that. But what happened is the order of magnitude became such that, that it was something for decide last year, early last year. I guess the point I would make, Councillor Tessier, is that regardless of that, whether council wants to continue to be in the trailer park business going forward, and I could tell you without talking too much out of school, with closed session that happened about this time last year, the reason council made a decision to, given all of the controversy and the confusion, I would suggest, between all parties as to who's responsible for what, council agreed that the environment was, and safe to say, acrimonious between certain tenants and the operator, and that the council of the day indicated that, maybe we should exercise our option not to renew. And so the individual was served notice at the end of 2 years and that we weren't fulfilling the third year. And that was as per our agreement. That was our applause. And so at this point, it was, okay, strategically, what do you want to do with that park? Do you want to keep it? Do you want to sell it? And if you sell it, do you want it to stay as a park? I'm not sure you have a lot of control over that. Or, should we be continuing to own that land? The 8.5 acres, certainly the rest of it is fine. So that's the decision point that's before you right now, is whether council wishes to continue to own the land or start the process of devolving it. Now, the reason that the memo is written in the way it is it is not our intention or it is not council, should council decide it, our intention doesn't matter, but it's certainly us thinking for council, it is not our intention to displace any of the current trailer operators with this quickly before a season. So any agreement that we would be able to reach would have a closing date after the season in any event. Now, the hope, if council were to choose this option, would be that somebody who wants to operate a trailer park would buy it and keep it as is and enhance it for their use. Or if they don't, then certainly they'd have to wait the end of the season. And then if they wanted to develop something else, it would be another economic development thing for somebody else. So that's the decision points that we have before us. I don't know if I'm oversimplifying it or.
No, essentially, that's what it is.
So the issue about the pool, it was already discussed previously, so that matter is kind of out of the way. It can't be brought up back up.
Well, the issue presently is to fix the pool would be about 110,000.
Yeah, I understand.
176,000.
176,000.
The pool, the fencing, it's a complete rebuild at this point.
If you think that any operator is going to spend 176,000 for 48, maybe a max of 60 tenants, they're never going to recoup that investment. So it becomes a municipal expenditure for a private operator to operate a park that has 48 seasonal tenants in it. I know that sounds like a sales pitch, but it's just the
No,
facts.
I was considering the liability as to the maintenance that the operator is responsible to take care. And if there was negligence, then it became on the operator. But if I don't know the past, what the investigation was, the reports, that was just my
supervise,
question.
we do have building controls, not building controls people, but our building facilities maintenance people who have gone and acted on complaints and have seen certain aspects. But the controversy has existed now for about, say, 2 years, a year and a half. Towards the end of 2021 is when we first, as a municipality, started to hear about the dissatisfaction with tenants. I don't know that.
If I can just add, the pool situation, the same operator operated the pool for 7 years. The first 5 years, there's no issues. He's maintaining everything correctly. He does the chemicals, the pool's open, everything is fine. But you have to keep in mind that that pool is an old pool. Probably around at the time when I was a child in Cache Bay and it was a public pool and people could access that pool. So it's been around. Then COVID hit and the pool was shut down by provincial order. So there was no one swimming. He wasn't putting chemicals in there. He wasn't maintaining it. And then lo and behold, we come back one spring and the liner's starting to tear off. The corners are starting to come off. It's no one's fault. It's just an old piece of infrastructure that has seen its life expectancy come to an end. So I think we can debate this, but I wouldn't put it on a single person saying that they caused this pool to collapse the way it has. I don't think that'd be fair for the operator to do.
Just bluntly put, I know there's a lot of questions for your own personal edification, but bluntly put, I don't know that it's material to the decision that council needs to make today or in the future. If you want to defer for more info, that's good too. But I mean, so your options are keep it, which if you keep it, you're probably running it as a trailer park. My strong recommendation is I don't want to be splitting our staff thinner than they are with respect to running it. We're not in the park operation business, so we would have to invest in bodies to do that. We could maintain it this year and limp along, or we could, as Councillor St. Louis was asking, we could put out an RFP and see if there's an interest really quickly.
So
Yeah, conseiller Plessis.
Okay, and just through you, Chair, again, as for the three choices, for the, to keep the park, are there, can we involve like students, summer students to maintain the park during the summer as well, to assist with maybe the youth program, to help with keeping the money within the community?
Well, we can certainly look at any aspect of the operation that will enhance the service to the users while minimizing expenses to us. Certainly, we'd be looking at the most cost-effective way of maintaining it. But if you think on an ongoing basis, we want to retain students to operate that park, and we're in the park operation business, it wouldn't be my recommendation to do that. You're going to hear at budget, a lot of our infrastructure is starting to get a little tired, and maintaining what we have is a little bit difficult. So to continue to spread ourselves that thin, I think we need to be at a point where we need to consolidate strategically as to what our residents really want and put our resources there.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Conseiller Saint-Louis.
Through your chair. So touching a bit on what Ms. Stacy was saying, so I'm looking at the appendix 3 where it says HR municipal staffing, if we were to run it, and it says $45,000, correct? So does that mean we would have a staff there Monday to Friday? Is that what we're getting at? So that's just staff going on occasion, cutting the grass and whatnot? And we figure that's $45,000?
Hey, may I respond?
Sure.
You have to keep in mind that you have to prep the park, and we have to winterize it. So we just don't only start on May 24. There's a lot of work that needs to be done. We have to rake the leaves. We have to put the pumps in. We have to make sure all the water lines are tested. So it adds up. And then there's the regular ongoing maintenance and the pool chemicals, which we've never paid in the past over the last couple of years. So it's not just May to September 30th. There's work before, there's work after. It involves our unionized staff. It involves water and sewer. It involves public works. There's road maintenance at the park itself. So it's a lot more than just the camping season. So I think 45,000 would be running it this year if council decides to sell the asset at a lower type of serviced park where we wouldn't have somebody there Monday to Friday or 7 days a week for 8 hours in case we do get day campers or weekly campers coming in and taking those reservations. If council decides this is a budget that was provided just if we run it on a smaller scale this year, if council decides to run it permanently moving forward, it's going to cost a lot more than that.
I wouldn't recommend council, besides we run it, I would recommend the same format as we've had in the past. I certainly wouldn't recommend us getting into it. I just know some of the difficulties that we're having, even with running Minnehaha Bay, and now we're in the marina business, pardon the pun. And so there's a lot of things that we have to consolidate, and I suggest that somebody who specializes in it or has the focus in Pitin Soakara would be the recommendation I would have.
Conseiller Pellerin.
I'm really sure about. I've never been there. I know it's close to Cache Bay. It's hard for probably a lot of people in Cache Bay. I wouldn't want to make a decision on selling the thing right away. I don't know anything about it. So I'd for sure like to see it go one more season. And then we can decide. We can go and visit and see what it's all about. One way or another, the municipality runs it, or ask somebody gets somebody to run it for the summer. Probably the pool, not probably, the pool is out of question for sure. Because for sure, we're not going to invest close to 200,000 to fix the pool. but at least it would give us a chance to look at it this summer. And there's a lot of people in town, jacks of all trades, that maybe would come up with an idea to fix the pool, I don't know. But at least it would give us a chance, one more year to see, we'd have the summer to decide, okay, it's not feasible, then that's my opinion.
See you, Russ.
I believe Councilor Nicol was before me.
No, you can go through.
Oh.
Okay.
Councilor Nicol.
Through you, Mr. Chair. If we were to entertain option 3, what would the benefit choosing A over B be? Would one of them give us a better appraisal, or would it be close to the same?
Well, certainly the option where you have all of the information would lead to a higher price.
Okay.
That's all I can tell you.
And then what would the environmental assessment cost be? Is that substantial?
Well, 10 grand,
5 to 10.
5 to 10.
Okay.
Councilor Estou.
Nobody else have their hand up?
No.
I'm waiting, but I can go. Would you like to go? Okay, so I have a couple of things that I would like to address. I think that the assessment that we should likely not be in the campground business is a correct one. We are expending municipal resources to manage a facility that serves only a very small portion of our population. The operation runs at a loss every year, which means the taxpayers, the municipality, are essentially subsidizing a service that serves 40 families or 45 families. And we are also acting in competition to several commercial operators in the municipality who are paying commercial tax rates and are struggling to, run their operations in really tightly competitive tourism industry that has generally low margins. And so for us to fund an operation in competition with the private sector through taxpayer dollars seems not the best use of our money. And then with the major capital improvements that are required on the property and the size of the property and the financial performance of it for the municipality, we will never make that money back. So when you look at having immediate needs of over $200,000 of investment between the pool and the electrical, and then the ongoing maintenance upkeep costs, it just doesn't make sense. If we were going to spend $150,000 on a pool, I would certainly hope that that pool would be open to the public. I don't know how one could justify spending that type of money on a pool that will serve 45 to 60 families or residents and not be available to all of the people at Cache Bay when we're asking them to take money out of their pocket to build it. I think there are a lot of issues with the property just from a policy perspective as to whether the municipality should be involved in that type of business. But financially, I think it's really hard as well. As Mr. Barbeau referenced, we have a lot of infrastructure and assets in this and facilities in this municipality. Many inherited 20 years ago with amalgamation. And every building and every facility that we keep costs money. So we need to be smart about how we're spending that money and which assets provide the most value to our residents. And so those are kind of my thoughts on the whole issue. It's not a money maker. It's something we spend money on, and it doesn't serve the community as a whole. It's not a facility or a park that's open in the public. Joe Smith can't drive down there and go for a picnic. And therefore, I don't think it's a good a good way for the municipality to spend staff resources, money and investment. And, you know, the money that's made off the sale of the property could be used to actually enhance and improve assets that are open to all of our residents. So I pass it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I should have gone first because the mayor doesn't want to do it. But I agree. I think, I don't know if the option was on the table to do a very short time framed RFP for this current year to get through while we do the environmental assessment, rather than having more strain on our staff. I know it's always busy, especially during the tourism season. So if that's something that council's looking at entertaining, I definitely support that view. And I think longer term, if we are doing that assessment and selling the property as it, and I don't think we're deciding that right now, but there's always opportunity for the current tenants there to stay with the new owner if that's how things work out. And as a municipality and for the taxpayers, we get the benefit of a sale of land that helps you know, the whole municipality, and also moving forward in future years, we also will be able to benefit the taxes that are collected on that property in that commercial venture, as the mayor mentioned. So I'm great. I'm okay with having it move forward this year. We do our work to prepare it for a sale and then move forward in the future. And also just, and I don't think I have to add this, but I agree with the pool portion as well. I know it's a nice plus to have, but at $200,000 that the municipality is paying for what it sounds like is going to be one season, and we probably wouldn't even be able to build it this season anyway. So I don't think that's really a decision that we need to make. I think it's already been made for us. So, and my comments there. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Conseiller Gagné.
So, je suis du même avis que la mairesse, puis Jamie, moi aussi, là, on n'est pas dans la business de compétitionner contre le privé. Je sais si moi j'appartenais à un parc pour des roulottes. Peut-être je m'aurais même plaint avant qu'on arrive au point où on est comme c'est là. Je peux ressentir possiblement la pression que certains conseillers ont parce que le parc est dans leur quartier. Mais à la fin de la journée, il ne faut pas oublier, il faut qu'on pense à comment est-ce qu'on va dépenser l'argent des taxpayers dans l'Ouest Nipissing pour s'assurer l'argent va en bonne place. On a déjà perdu un trailer park du Struzac. Les gens se sont déplacés dans d'autres parcs, puis ça fonctionne, puis on n'entend pas parler du parc du Struzac. C'est de valeur, ça serait le fun de garder. J'ai été au parc KFB, moi j'ai campé là, je m'ai baigné dans la piscine, j'ai eu beaucoup de plaisir, mais malheureusement, on n'est pas ici pour compétitionner contre le secteur privé. So, je suis d'accord qu'on aille de l'avant avec la recommandation de l'administration et au moins pas que les résidents du parc comme c'est là soient mal pris, qu'on puisse l'opérer pour cette année, soit avec un opérateur ou la municipalité nous-mêmes, pour pas que les gens soient mal pris. Mais peut-être donner la chance à peut-être même un résident qui est là comme c'est là de l'acheter puis l'opérer comme une entreprise puis possiblement faire de l'argent avec. Alors, c'est mon partage de commentaires. Merci.
Anyone else? Or I'll just finish by saying that Jamie, Conseiller Restel, Conseiller Gagné, and Mayor Rushmore pretty much touched on everything that I was mentioned there. In terms of selling the park only next year, I believe that's why we kind of had to start discussing it now for that, so that we can give them notice and run it as a smaller operation this year, just so that it's not a, you know, because then we'll be in the same situation next year where we're going to have to operate it again next year in order to sell it the year after. So I do believe we probably wouldn't be able to wait till next year in order to decide if we sell it or not. Right? But, you guys pretty much covered everything.
So, through your chair, I believe what Mr. Pettit was initiating or insinuating earlier, and I agree with him, is if we're going to have somebody, if we're going to give someone an opportunity to be a third party like we used to, why are we, I get what you're saying, I understand about the tax dollars, but I'm sure there's a lot of things that are going on in our municipality where we're losing money anyways, and we're not shutting them down. Conseiller Gagné made the mention of, we've already lost one trailer park in Dutrazac. So why lose a second one? right? So if we sell it to an owner and it's his choice and he decides to shut her down and build a zoo for all I know, then we're losing another trailer park for the people that displaced themselves from Dutrasac and went to Cache Bay. What I'm getting at is if we're gonna have an individual, a third party take over this time and it's functional and he does it right and it runs properly and he takes care and maintains all our municipal buildings that we have on that. Yes, I get the pool, especially the pool, and I agree 100% with Madam Mayor where, and I mean, Mr. Poulin made mention, I'm from Cache Bay. We used to go swimming there when we were kids, but it was open to the public. And 100%, if we were to spend that money at some point in time, I agree that it should be open to the public and not just the individuals that are there. But my recommendation or my suggestion is if we can have a third party and run it, as opposed to saying, let's run it for this year and we sell it next year, let's run it for this year and let's see what happens at the end of this year. And if he makes it a success and if he embellishes it, or not embellish, that's not the right word, but makes it nicer and makes it interesting for the people that are there, why not continue to do that? We're talking about 48 and maybe only 10 of them are from West Nipissing. So now we're talking about 38 families that are not going to be coming to West Nipissing anymore, that are not going to be purchasing groceries, that are not going to be purchasing gas, that are not going to be spending their money here in West Nipissing. If it's a loss of $9,000, I can almost assure you that $9,000 is spent to our commercial businesses here in town, whether it's them going to Twigs, whether it's them going to do groceries or whatnot. So.
I'll say 2 cents. I'll see. Oh, conseiller Pellerin.
Yes, I agree with Mr. St. Louis, and again, I say we should wait to make a decision on this. Try it for the summer, and maybe before again the summer, we can have a good idea what to do. There's no rush right now to make a decision. Like I said, I've never been there. I don't know. Probably others too. I've never been there.
Just you might want some.
Yeah.
Where do I go from here? Kind of discussion. Well, you're not really voting, but I agree in the sense that there's no rush. Where the rush was that given the hiatus of the end of last year and our inability to bring things forward, we wanted to have a position from council as to where they wanted to go. Now, my view on it, and I'm not trying to push a recommendation, my view on it is that if council, and that's a big if council decided that they didn't want to continue to be in this business or the landlord business per se, because we're not really operating it, we'd be going to a third party, then we have to start moving forward on starting to devolve some of our assets. And so we can do that at a time. We can wait a year if that's council's wish, or if council, depending on how this goes tonight, certainly what I did say is that any closing date would be after the camping season, but there's nothing that precludes us from A, putting out an RFP for a third party to manage it for this year, if somebody wants to, and then B, list it. And then if you list it, obviously we would never settle on a price that didn't have an end of season closing date or with somebody with obvious assurances that it would be continuing to run as a going concern. So that was the kind of idea, is that these things could happen simultaneously. We can continue to run the park either through our own resources or through a third party, which, again, would have to move on it. And then basically decide. So the decision is, do you want to keep the asset or don't you? Two individuals here, I've heard, maybe three, have indicated that they are not prepared to make any decision to lose the asset. And then I've heard 3 or 4 that said they would be ready to entertain devolving the asset. So that leaves 2 other people here that haven't commented, the 2 on the end.
It's a secret.
But that's, I don't know if that's the synopsis of it. I understand Mr. Pelray's point, or Councillor Pelray. I understand Councillor St. Louis, but I also understand whatever. I take no decision. Council decides not to sell it, we're good. I mean, it's not a,
Well, I think you read the room. in the right way there.
okay.
I'm just wondering if we, if it is put to a vote in order of keeping it, and then there's option 1 or 2, or selling it, that's option 3.
Right, and and whatever you decided by a straw poll vote, Mr. Chair, would come as a resolution of council next meeting anyway. It would be done by resolution formally to vote on.
This would just informally give staff
On what to do.
on what to do for the next meeting.
So informally, who, by a show of hands, who would be willing to sell the park and its assets? That's 5, so that would be 6? Oh,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I keep not looking your way. But yeah, so that passes then and that.
So what will happen then is we will be looking at at a resolution next meeting of council. Steph?
Just a point of clarification, selling of the asset, will it be as is, or is council supporting an environmental?
So I guess now that we voted for that, we can enter into a second vote in regards to A or B.
Do we need to make that decision now? Could we have maybe a more fulsome report? Like, do you guys need a decision?
Yep, for now.
I would probably want more information. I don't know if the wish is to try and keep it as a trailer park, then as is where is probably works in your favor. If you're starting to add additional information where it becomes a nice 40 home development, because you've given them an environmental assessment, then you can guarantee that the more you give that kind of information, the more other uses could come into play. So but we could bring back those kind of strategic points to discuss.
And may I just add as well, there's another option council could look at is if we get a buyer coming in, looking at that site and wishes to expand on the trailer park, there's land going east to it that is not affected by the protected wetland, identification that they could potentially request to council to expand that park. And we would have some land to offer if that would be the case, as long as it's not going towards the shoreline.
Well, how many extra acres are there on that east side of the property? A lot.
Yeah, we can come back with more detail, but there's lots of land there.
Well, as for tonight, I guess we'll just end this discussion on this matter. When it comes to resolutioning, we'll talk about the different options when it comes to selling the land and its assets. Oh,
I just have one question
Yeah.
about that. Is there, to come back to council with more information on the 2 different options, whether it's with an environmental assessment or as is, where is there a possibility to get a kind of, I guess without the environmental assessment, but like what the difference in value we might expect on those, like whether it would help us determine whether that's which road we would want to take as far as what the difference in the price of the property could be with the.
So I think the resolution, through you, Mr. Chair, could be vague in that information is to come, but certainly not by the time a resolution is passed. Would you be able to provide, I don't think an opinion of value, which is a lower form of an appraisal, would come into play because there's some complexities of comparables and that kind of thing. It's probably a lot more complex than saying, well, we have 5 or 6 trailer parks around the area that sold for this. It's probably more of a commercial appraisal we're looking at. So I have a feeling we need to talk to somebody who's a commercial appraiser to give us more expert opinion on that.
let's see, Kulshani.
Sorry, a quick question through you, Mr. Chair. Bringing those options, I guess, back to council, is it possible to have an idea of a budget, let's say 5 or 10,000 for the environmental assessment? The commercial appraisal will be in upwards of 5,000
Yes.
at least. Closing costs, so just so we can get an idea of that,
Sure.
if and when the time comes, this is how much it's going to cost the municipality.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that could be provided by next meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it would be nice to know how much it would sell for or what costs would be incurred with the sale of the property as well. Councilor Restel.
To keep this conversation going too long, through you, Mr. Chair, just, we've talked about the sale part and the work that's necessary with that, but with the RFP, is that any timeframe, a ballparkish on when we can get that?
An RFP?
For the operations part for this summer?
If we format it or structure it on the previous RFP, I'm just thinking out loud and then see if staff shoots me. But I have a feeling we could put something out this week. Yeah.
Yep.
And with probably 3 week to a month closing. So we can probably have submissions probably around, I'm just spitballing here, but end of March for an award. And then somebody will have to be ready to hit the ground running with everything that needs to be done to operate it.
Thank you.
Thanks. So no more questions, comments, concerns on Ashbury Trailer Park. Move on to the second item on the agenda for Community Service Committee, which is the request to install Marina the Mermaid statue on municipal property. So, council, we have to provide direction of staff for a request received from the Sturgeon Falls Beautification Group for the installation of a statue, a mermaid called Marina, on municipal property at Minnehaha Bay. And we were provided with two options in the staff report. One would be to approve the installation of the statue at Minnehaha Bay as per engineered specifications, which there's two separate locations that have been presented in the staff report. One would be just next to the boat launch, and the other would be kind of at the end of the trail near the amphitheater. And then option two would be to decline the request to install the statue on municipal property. So the recommendation from staff is that council supports option two due to public safety concerns associated with the structure. This meaning that it will not be a piece of art that the public will be able, because it will not be a piece of art that public will be able to view easily due to the way the statue would have to be displayed due to its, to mitigate the health and safety concerns. So I'll open up the floor to any questions, comments, concerns. Councilor Nipissing.
Yes, through you, Chair. Just considering the option for the Mermaid option 2, I'm just wondering why option 1 wasn't, the architect did not provide information as why option 1 was not considered. Because I did go to the site, and this is what I saw, is that walking through and meeting with residents, the option 2, there's a lot of young people that go there to just hang out, and there's vandalism that happens in that area. And the option there for, and it would just invite the youth to, if you put the marina on a 10 feet structure, it'll just invite them to try and climb and jump in the water because the water is deep enough to dive off of it. To me, option 1 would be the most appropriate one. There's also two granite blocks on the way to the option 2 that are just sitting there, that I think they were there to for a purpose of another project that's been didn't go through. And there was 3 of those blocks there, and one was used for the Kipling Cemetery as the I'll mispronounce the name, but the for the memorial for the was it Remembrance Day? What is it called? Sapatat? Sorry. Anyways, so now those other 2 are there in the trail. There's paint on them from vandalism. So if those 2 blocks could be used on top of each other because they're 5 feet in height, I'm wondering if An engineer can be consulted to review to see if the structure of that would be available. And placing them at option one, there's lighting because that would make it open to people. And there's also security cameras at Twigs that you could monitor. And then plus you have the residents around and there's a lot of traffic. So the height of the pedestal will allow for people not to be able to touch the structure. Also, there could be a little fence around with signs to say, do not touch or climb. So we're doing our due diligence. And when people are looking at the statue, they'll be taking a step back. So they wouldn't be touching any part of the structure. So to me, the option one would be the best location. As option two, you're in the dark, the vandalism. So to me, I think option one should have been addressed or looked at as well in those aspects.
Another question?
Well, I was just providing that the option one, why it wasn't considered. And when I went to look, I mean that option one, everything as far as security, vandalism, plus it's inviting because coming from the lake, you'll see the aspect of the marina and also coming down to the parking lot, you're at the top of the hill and you'll see the statue right away. So it's like an embellishment plus.
Okay, so I guess I'll just comment. And Mr. Poulenc can correct me if I'm mistaken, but I won't go into a couple of years ago. Well, this thing was purchased and we agreed to store it downstairs and blah blah blah. It did with the with the council difficulties in addressing issues last year. It was difficult to have a continuous flow on anything, there was some resistance by some and some willingness by others, and so I finally made it on council last fall.
Yep.
And council directed us to go down with our consultant architect to have a look at what would be feasible. One of them that he's indicated would be feasible is, I think the two options are feasible, are they not?
You did look at both, and both were considered, yes.
Yeah, and both are considered and both have a price. One of them is slightly less expensive actually than the out of the way location. So I believe one is 3,000. The option you're looking at is about $3,000 less. As for the method of construction, that we're looking at, I pretty much stand by our consultant who's built and advises us on a lot of information. He's built quite a few buildings for us here as well. His assessment of what the cost would be, are fairly close. So I guess the issue that I would say, as politely as I can, is that despite what I've heard, staff has no real stake in the game. What staff has a stake in is making sure that the item and that decisions that the council are made with the information, and that all risks are minimized. And the concern that I have personally with the Mermaid, and you've all seen it today, is any physical contact with this can open us up to liability with respect to potential cuts with the hair and so on and so forth. And if anybody disagrees with that, well, that's all well and good. But anybody that I've shown it to have all had that concern. So then the concern then comes into play with, and our standards are probably a little bit higher than the Facebook crowd, in that we have to make sure that our public is protected from that kind of liability, and then the public overall is protected from nuisance or lawsuits that arise from it. And if for any of you who are aware, we do get sued a lot. Municipalities get sued a lot. Individuals don't get sued as much, but municipalities do get sued a lot. And if we're not going to be following advice and information from our experts, we run a risk of not having that liability covered under our general damages. So I think council is aware of that. Nor staff, which a little, I'll try and keep my comments as polite as possible, have no skin in the game. This is a political issue, whether council wishes to have the Mermaid at that location or any other location that the municipality wants to have. Now, originally, as the memo indicated, there were some nice renderings about shutting down our fountain, which wasn't wholly accepted by the past council. They kind of wanted the fountain there. There were some discussions with some of our staff about putting it up in the air at the fountain. Lo and behold, and I think the discussion of the day said that wasn't going to be feasible for us. And so then they said, well, why don't we put it near the water in Minnehaha Bay? And so the location where it's being proposed by the boat launch is potentially doable. It's whether council wants to do it and at what cost. But, you know, and I'll leave it at that. But the insinuation that I've heard, I guess I will say, kind of uncalled for. Staff takes no position on this matter. We just have to provide advice as to what our recommendation is. And that's, that's where we're at. So, you know, it is problematic. It is a piece of artwork that is not as steady as some of the other stuff that I've seen, where you've got statues or even Stella. Stella is a little less easy to hurt yourself on than this one. So as long as we have our needs or our conditions met, that the safety of the public is protected, and that we can actually protect the piece, because it's a piece of artwork, you know. So I don't want to put a piece of artwork somewhere, just speaking myself, where within 2 weeks somebody's kicked it in or damaged it or torn off the hair and that kind of thing. Then what happens? Are we responsible for it to bring it back to what it was? So we'll build this big standard thing, and I don't ever underestimate the will or the ability of people who want to vandalize things to achieve their objective. I mean, they're pretty crafty people. They can climb, they can do whatever, they can throw a rope, they can do whatever. So I'm just trying to be, in fairness to this piece of artwork, making sure that it's properly protected, maintained, stored, and usable. So that's basically my perspective on it. And so, you know, again, if somebody wants to put that piece of artwork on a private location, heck of a lot easier for us. Putting it in a public location, it may not please those who got excited about wanting to put it somewhere. And I respect the work that that committee has done for this community, but it doesn't preclude the job that we have to do to ensure that things are done in a reasonable manner. And I thought I would share that. So regardless, if council decides that around 20 grand is not an issue, and that they want to have it where they want to have it, we can make that happen.
Sorry, Madam President, just in response to one of the questions about option one not being looked at, I believe they were both looked at it. This was just the consultant's preferred location, but he did in fact look at the one near the boat launch as well.
What was the outcome? What was his
explanation?
I
believe he just mostly gives a cost estimate to it in this report. That's all it's in. But it was in fact looked at, but I think he explains it in there. It likes how it's above the water. I guess it mitigates a little bit more the health and safety risk, but they were both looked at by the consultant from what I saw in the report.
Steph, were you down there with him when he saw it?
No, Johnny was. If I may, Mr. Chair, through you, he does provide, we provided you with the architect's opinion on why he selected that location as a preferred location. It's all there. It's in bullet format. He explains why he put it there.
Select option 2, but did he provide information why he did not select option 1?
He did not. He provided us with his preferred location. And I did explain also in the memo, again through you, Mr. Chair, what the consultant looked at making his decision. He did consider public safety, vandalism, location, access for public viewing, and overall aesthetics. He did look at the installation, the design and logistics, and the cost of ongoing maintenance. And in Appendix 4, he clearly articulates why exactly he selected that site as his preferred site. Now, council could decide to go with the consultant's recommendation or not. We just provided you with the facts and information.
So just a question, sorry. To decline the request to install the statue on municipal property, would that completely null and void putting it anywhere?
On municipal property.
Okay, thank you.
It is not an asset that we own at this moment.
It's okay, thank you.
So it is not a municipal asset. Council wants to be helpful, or the previous council wanted to be helpful and are entertaining or looking at options around Minnehaha Bay. There are options, but council hasn't made a final decision as to whether they're willing to accept marina on municipal property.
Two questions.
Councilor Restle, do you still have?
Okay.
Can't let the mayor beat me.
No.
I just, through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to share a couple of thoughts. One is prior to the purchase of this, which precedes all of us here at the table because we weren't here. But with this group, beautification group in the community, I think do a fantastic job all over the place. They're everywhere. We see them on Facebook. They're doing a great job. Everything that they've contributed has been fantastic. What I'd like to see moving forward, and this isn't a criticism, it's being cohesive together, is just to have a little bit more communication, a little bit more dialogue with council or staff or both, whichever it might be. And this is a situation where I think that would have helped a little bit because I see the enthusiasm, I see the purchase that was made, and that's great. It's a beautiful piece. I went down to see it this evening. But I have concerns with it as well in terms of the safety of it. And I think if we would have had some dialogue in terms of this discussion and where it goes, where can we put this, where might it be best suited within the community, rather than being here 2 years after it was purchased. And as I've mentioned to some folks, council has just come out of a very rocky relationship with the community in some effects over the last couple of years. And I'm not interested in going back there, and I don't want to start feuding with the beautification committee over something like this. I want a partnership. I want to work together to continue the great work that's happening. But I feel like we're kind of in a position, and it's not for necessarily from the committee members, but you see some of the social media, you see some of the comments in town where it's starting to go back to that lens where now council's the bad guys because we're not letting this happen. I think there's other things that have to be considered more than just putting something somewhere within the community. I went down to the piece this evening, and for me, I would concur that it's a very dangerous piece of art if it is somewhere that can be accessed by anybody, whether they're climbing, whether they're doing whatever. I put my hands on the scales and I almost cut my fingers, and that's just me touching it. I would never want, kids are old enough now, but a young child in shorts to maybe sit on the mermaid because she wants to take a picture, because I'd almost guarantee they're going to come out there with cuts on their legs for sure. It's a liability piece in that perspective, not just the hair, but I think probably even more so now that I've seen it with the scales of it. I know when the sturgeon, and that was Stella was mentioned earlier tonight, that's on private property. It's not in a public place. I don't know all the background. I don't know why it was posed into a private property rather than Minnehaha Bay. But if there's suggestion, and I don't think that from what I've read online, what I've read from emails, and lots of emails that I've received, I don't think the will or the preferred display of this piece is on a 12 or 10 foot pole high where you can't, and you're looking up, but I think it's more to see. I know it's not in the recommendation here, but if there's consideration that can be given, I've spoken with some educated people within the community, and some talk about maybe having this piece be put on private property and have the Stella be moved down to Minnehaha Bay by the boat launch or by the other site that was recommended by the architect, where it's a safer piece. People can see it more. It's in the community. And if those individuals who took care of Stella through the beautification group are interested in having this piece be put on their private property and want to take the liability that comes along with it, I'd be all for that. From my seat as a counselor who's representative for the community and the safety of community members as well, that would be something that would be a lot more, I could go with that a lot more than having this particular piece be on a piece of granite, like Jay mentioned or Mr. Barbo mentioned. Go to Ottawa or go to Toronto, and I'm not saying that's where we are, but the people who want to do graffiti, the people who want to cause havoc, they're going to find a way. You wonder how they got onto bridges or 10-story sides of buildings, and they can do it. And if they want to do it, they're going to do it. So I wouldn't want to see that as an outcome as well, to put money, taxpayer money into this and install this piece, and within a short period of time, there's graffiti or damage or whatnot. And again, in my seat as a municipal councillor, representing the community, then it's our asset, and then we have to pay for the repairs or pay for the maintenance or the upkeep because it's on municipal property. So that's my thoughts on this. I'm open to creativity, and I know it's going to help draw interested people who follow that art or that type of following to raise some tourism in the community. But I could never support this piece being somewhere where it can be accessed by any community member. It's just not it's beautiful. It's just not a safe piece. And if that's something that the beautification committee through their channels are interested in entertaining, I'd support that if it can come back to us as an option. But a safer piece like the sturgeon down by the Sturgeon Falls, I'd be much more happy with that and much more willing to support that kind of initiative if that's something that, like I mentioned, the beautification committee through their channels and those who have private property where the sturgeon is now is something that they'd like to consider. I'll stop there.
Thanks, Ben. Councilor Russell.
I had a couple of questions, but I'll just go with my questions. So if we do, and that was one of the questions, if council makes a decision to place the piece on municipal properties, does the piece then become the property of the municipality? So we have full ownership and a domain over that. Is that correct?
I think the legal structure, the assumption would be we would be responsible. We certainly would be incurring liability by whatever method, whether we own it or license. We provide a license to put it somewhere. But the legal structure of allowing like some sort of a license, I don't even know who owns it. I know there was funds raised by a group of people, but I don't know that whoever probably cut the check to the artist owns it right now. My concern is regardless of the structure, the legal structure, I don't think it absolves us from liability that we would need to either ensure that the private owner, should we assume it, takes the measures necessary that would satisfy us to protect us from liability, or in the alternative, we have to take those measures. But it's, at the end of the day, it's the community having to take measures if it's on public property.
So may I add something, Mr. Chair? So to that, the liability certainly stands with us. We do have a donation policy that specifically states when a group, organization, or an individual donates something to the municipality to be on municipal land, that if it is, like I'll use an example, park benches, we've seen that in the past. People will donate park benches at Minnehaha or downtown. If they are broken, vandalized, or anything else, the municipality is not responsible to replace it. That's through our donations policy. If somebody donates a tree to be planted at the museum, and the tree is cut, or the tree doesn't make it, or the windstorm blows by and the tree breaks, we are not responsible. That's directly in our donations policy. So that's something we could look at if that's the case, but the liability 100% lies with us.
Thanks. Any other? Councilor Gagné?
I like Jamie's comment in regard to Stella the sturgeon. I'm just wondering, I guess we'd have to check to see if there's any cutting parts to the fish, because if the sturgeon, because if it does, still gonna have to be gated and maybe raised also. So if the group, beautification group does entertain that, maybe they can consider moving the sturgeon. I'd like to at least have peace of mind that it's not too dangerous as Stella is, the Mermaid is right now also. So, because I'd have a hard time accepting a $15,000 or $18,000 raised mantle and fencing and so on. So it's expensive, especially in these days of inflation.
Yeah, I think that would be something that we would touch on if ever that was an option brought up to us at some point.
All right, sorry, I have one more question. Through you, Mr. Chair, what was the total budget for beautification projects throughout the municipality last year? And if this were approved, is that where this money would come from? Like from next year, which we haven't gone into budget yet, so.
I believe the amount, Mr. Poulin can correct me, is around 40,000 in general for beautification. Is that typically?
As a total?
Yeah.
Well, the last couple of years that's been more because we've had requests. For example, the last 2 years, we've spent $20,000 on just garbage cans alone. But a total budget for the entire municipality would range on an average year around 50,000.
Sorry, how much?
50.
50?
Well, that also includes our West Nipissing banners and flags and that we replace every year, so that there's more to just flowers and flower beds. And we also work with community groups throughout or beautification groups throughout the communities on special projects that they'd like to see move ahead as well. But we don't have a fixed line. It varies from year to year. The last couple of years, that line item has seen an increase.
Oh, thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I almost forgot I had my hand up. I echo what Councillor Ristel had mentioned with regards to, art is art at the end of the day, and it has a place, I'm in agreement too that, the structure is very sharp. I just put my hand on the scale real quickly and I almost got my hand cut. So I understand like the safety issue, the liability issue. I'm thinking I'm in favor of option 1 at placing it, at Minnehaha Bay, but maybe to communicate, I guess, better with the beautification group. I understand communication was an issue with the last, I guess, little while with previous council or whatnot. So I would entertain going, I guess, I don't want to say back to the drawing board, but, back to, consulting with the group and seeing what solutions we can find. Having, let's say, like a $50,000 budget with 15,000 just for one particular item, I think it is a lot. So maybe, it'd be at looking at, if the group has fundraised, maybe there is, something we can do in working collaboratively. I always say, like, let's find a solution. That may be just, one of the ways we can, just going back, sitting, dialoguing with the committee and seeing, okay, maybe option 1 won't be okay because of, public safety or whatnot. Maybe let's look at, other options, let's think outside the box and seeing what fits. I wouldn't want to, let's say, commit, let's say 15 or 20,000 just for one project. And, having 10 communities being part of West Nipissing. Jay, you always said it. West Nipissing is the sum of its parts. So if we're putting too much in one, let's say, area, well, we're gonna take it from another area. So I would like to continue on with the momentum. I think Sturgeon Falls Beautification Group is doing some wonderful work. It's resonating through the other communities as well, whether it be with the Verner beautification, Living, and the likes. So I think I'd favor option one, but to have that open dialogue and find a solution that's preferable for everyone, keeping in mind the safety aspect and the financial impact that it would have.
I'll see. Councillor Nicol.
Through you, Mr. Chair, to add my unpopular opinion to this discussion, I'd first like to acknowledge the wonderful things that the beautification group has done within our community. But the ask being brought forward is roughly $15,000 to $18,000 cost that never went through any consultation or approval process beforehand. So before building new infrastructure to maintain, I would like to see the beautification funds allocated to assist with the completion of other unfinished projects within the community. It's been several years since the funds have been brought to other areas significantly other than Sturgeon Falls. There's existing structures and projects that require immediate attention, and I would like to see them finished before starting and maintaining something new. That's just my thought. Father Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. So for myself as well, I kind of stand to agree with Councillor Resto, Conseiller Gagné in regards to Marina the Mermaid and the health and safety risk. Based on staff's recommendation, it's impossible to say how thankful I'm sure all of us are for the Sturgeon Falls Beautification Group for their sweeping, weeding, King, Maine, Queen, William, right downtown, planting hostas, taking care of those hostas, community cleanups, the IPM work that they did, flower bed at Town Hall, markets. It's a really good event that we have here in town throughout the summer. I'm sure I'm missing some things that the beautification group are doing. They're doing a lot for the community, but just based on that health and safety risk and the cost associated to this project, as well as mentioned, is a little, I'd like to see alternative options. I do really like the idea. I've heard it as well of potentially having Stella in that location instead of Marina the Mermaid, but these are all things that would have to come up to the table later on. And I guess the one main thing that I don't like about putting it at the marina is if it's up on that pedestal, I think the idea is that you want people to be able to take pictures with the statue. And I think once it's up there, it kind of defeats that purpose. You got to stand far away. You're not really taking photos with it. It's not as ideal as I believe everyone would want it to be. That's about all I have to add to that. Councillor Resto touched on most of it.
Yes, what I'm hearing, and I think I'll take the lead if you don't mind giving some of what was shared with me. I will reach out to the beautification committee and have a discussion on some of those options, and I'll get back to council with a further report as to whether any progress can be made as to options that could be looked at.
Thank you. So we wouldn't be voting on option 1 or 2, is it?
No,
Not even a show.
no. I think that there was enough discussions talking about Stella and a few other solutions that I'd like to have a discussion with them.
Thanks. Oh, Mayor Rochelle. Oh,
Quick. We're just going to take it back for you to do break at this time. And we'll come back in 10 minutes and pick up where we left off. Move her in a second. What's that?
Are we finished this one?
Oh.
yeah, this one would be closed out.
Okay. So move her in a seconder to adjourn for break.
Councillor Gagne and seconded by Councillor Stool. At approximately 8:10 p.m., a motion was tabled for a 10-minute recess.
All in favor? Thank you. Hey, welcome back, everybody. We're still in Committee of the Whole, 5.2 Community Services Committee. I'll pass it back to the Chair, Councillor Rivard.
Thank you, Mayor Rushall. Next on the agenda was in regard to the Youth Advisory Committee, terms of reference. So on January 3rd, Council approved the creation of a Youth Advisory Committee, and we asked for staff to start drafting up some terms of reference. So now we're here tonight. So the purpose of the Youth Advisory Committee will be to provide a voice for the youth of West Nipissing while assisting council in an advisory capacity on social and recreational matters that will enhance the quality of life, safety, health, and well-being of West Nipissing's younger population. In the terms of reference, it lays out the mandate, which is to be a part of a two-way dialogue through information sharing between council and youth, to provide youth with a better understanding of municipal politics, to present the opportunity for youth to provide input regarding council initiatives, provide an opportunity for youth to establish their needs, concerns, wants, and promote general awareness towards youth, to keep council informed on important matters affecting the youth in our community, to partner with established community organizations, and to act as a positive advocate for youth in the community. So there were just a few key items I noted in the terms of reference that may be of importance. There's a maximum of 11 members, age 14 to 24 years of age, and the term is expected to be 1 year. One from each ward and one representing each high school in West Nipissing. So Kaisarolda, Nipissing West, Thorncosti, and Northern Secondary School. And there would be a minimum of 6 meetings per year and a minimum of 1 presentation to council containing activities, concerns, or key priorities for the year. So I'd like to open up the floor to any comments or
Just a quick question, noting that if we're going to involve a few of the high school, can we make a mention in there if it can count towards their voluntary hours at the school? Because every kid has to do 40 hours of voluntary work. So if they're part of this committee, if we can add in there that it's part of, that we can make it towards their high school hourly volunteer hours.
I think that would be a really good amendment or possible.
Absolutely. Through you, Mr. Chair, we can certainly add it that it is an option if they do require volunteer hours, that we can work with the schools and assigning those volunteer sheets.
Else?
I'll speak a little to it if you don't mind. I'm really excited about bringing back a youth advisory committee. And I think that that it will be a positive thing. I think one thing I would like to mention, and it will be the same when we talk about the next item, is that for these kinds of committees to be effective, there will need to be some kind of budget consideration when we go into our budget deliberations next week and in the coming weeks, that in order to be able to support some of the activities, there should be some money set aside in the budget, and what that number is and what it looks like. We can discuss during budget deliberations, but we should have the resources there to back initiatives as they come up, because I know in the research that I did, and I think Mr. Poulin also referenced it in the research that his staff did in developing these. One point of failure for youth committees that don't succeed is the fact that they're not backed by any kind of dollar value, and we're not talking about significant investment, but having some funds available to support initiatives as they come up. And when I was thinking about restarting this, I think one of the important things too is having youth representation on some of our other committees. So once we get this established, is there a way to tie these memberships into saying having one member of the Youth Advisory Committee sit on our newly formed what are we calling it? Recreation and Culture
That
Committee.
is actually something.
And, you know, perhaps, and the library runs a little separately, so there'd have to be research done on it. Is there a place for a youth member on the library committee, or a youth member with a disability on our accessibility advisory committee? So those are kinds of the things that I'd like to see as we evolve in the idea, and whether that needs to show up in the terms of reference or not, you know, we can look at. And I would just mention when we talk about membership as well, it would be really great just to have a reference to diversity and inclusion in that. So, you know, we can't control who applies, but looking to make sure that we have representation from First Nations, looking to have representation from LGBTQ youth, and making sure that the makeup when we're doing the selections from the applicants, that we're looking to have a committee that looks like our community. So, but I'm really excited about the idea overall, and I think that it will go a long way to help engage youth back into the community and help them start to drive some of the activity and some of the things that we as a council are building for them. So, thank you. I'll pass it back to you.
Thank you. Monsieur Gagné.
Mr. Chair, juste quelques questions. C'est quoi le raisonnement pour l'âge de 14 ans?
Mr. Chair, the rationale behind that is some of the research we looked at, other youth advisory committees, and most, if not all, were from 14 to 25. So I think we wanted to add that perspective. 14, I believe, is the age you start high school. And we wanted a good range and not all of the same age group. So we thought that through our research, we saw that a lot of the similar type committees had 14 to 25. So that's about the rationale we had.
Okay. La raison, je demande, parce que si ta fête est passée le mois de septembre, tu as juste 13 ans jusqu'au mois de décembre. Tu ne passes pas le threshold du 14 ans avant la prochaine année. Ça pourrait disqualifier des gens de 9e année d'appliquer. C'est la seule raison que je le dis. Comme moi, je suis à ce cas-là, à cause de ma fête, c'est en septembre. Quand j'ai commencé mon secondaire, j'avais 13 ans, j'avais pas 14 ans. So, je sais jamais qu'il y a des 9e années qui veulent faire de monde ne pourra pas qualifier. À moins qu'on. So, j'étais juste curieux pour savoir. Là, so.
Non, je pense que c'est un bon point quand on commence à regarder à établir des âges comme critères. Il va falloir vraiment définir ça. C'est un bon point. On peut indiquer 14 ans à partir de telle date.
Ouais. We could say grade 9.
Instead of using age, we can say grade 9 to 25 years of age, or.
Mm-hmm.
Just a suggestion to maybe look forward. Puis l'autre question que j'avais, c'était ce comité-là, c'est comme nos autres comités, comme la bibliothèque, ces choses-là, ou c'est quelque chose de différent? Parce que nos autres comités sont payés un montant participant à leur rencontre. Est-ce que c'est qualifié comme les mêmes genres de comités ou c'est juste comme c'est-tu différent, comme le comité de bibliothèque et les autres comités?
Je crois que for the Youth Advisory Committee, I don't believe there was a stipend, but there is for Cultural and Recreation Committee. But I think we were going to, because some of these committee members will probably require some assistance from parents or otherwise to get to and from meetings. So we were considering as part of our budget is not a stipend, but at least paying mileage for those that require to be taken to these meetings.
Okay. Okay.
Hence, if I can just elaborate, quand on regarde la donnée des heures bénévoles, ouais, c'est difficile à dire que si tu es là comme bénévole quand tu es payé, alors ça va tomber pile avec la suggestion de donner des heures bénévoles.
Okay. Ouais, puis c'était plutôt le déplacement, là, comme on a dit pour les quartiers sans que c'est situé à l'extérieur. So. Parfait, plus de questions, M. Chair. Merci beaucoup. Merci.
We need a show of hands as that, or we speak about that in next meeting?
So you got a couple little.
Yeah,
changes
we're
there.
gonna have some modifications to make to the terms of reference. These will be coming back and adopted by council by resolution. And now that we know that it's the will of council to proceed with this, we're gonna start the legwork so that we can post these positions ASAP as soon as council approves it and have the selection process to you in no time.
Thank you.
Sorry. Cool. Conseiller.
Chair, through your chair, just I'm just going back to something that Councillor Gagne had mentioned about the age, and I 100% understand what he's getting at for kids. However, I've heard people saying that we'll just say grade 9. Keep in mind, my son, when he is class, there's somebody in his class who skipped a grade. So that individual can be a 12-year-old kid who's 13 or whatnot going into grade 9, right? So we just got to keep that in mind, right?
So Mr. Chair, so we'll go back to providing a date. If you're 14 prior to
On
this certain date, then you're eligible to apply. And instead of going away from the grade, yeah.
That's all. Sorry.
Well, it looks like we can move on to the next item on the agenda, which is the Recreation and Culture Committee. So similar to the Youth Advisory Committee on January 3rd, Council approved the creation of the Recreation and Culture Committee. And we've now been presented with the terms of reference. So the purpose of this committee would be to assist council in advisory capacity on matters related to art, culture, heritage, recreation, leisure, and programming in West Nipissing. The mandate of this committee is to advise and make recommendations to council on matters related to art, culture, heritage, recreation, leisure, and programming, to develop and maintain working relationships with organizations and volunteer groups who are involved with this kind of work in the community, to advise council and assist with the development of educational and recreational programs based on community needs, to make recommendations to council and set out clear goals and priorities for the upcoming years, and to undertake other assignments as may be requested by council as it relates to the overall purpose of the committee. So other key items in this terms of reference that I noted were membership would be 11 maximum members, and here the term would actually be 4 years. 8 members would be from various sectors in the municipality. And I noticed on the terms of reference it says 8, but then in brackets it says 7. So maybe that would be amended. Something simple, but those a few sectors to note would be arts, culture, and leisure, programming, sports and recreation, and events and leisure. And then there would also be 2 members of council and 1 youth representative, aged specific date, you're 14 years old to 24. And there would be a minimum of 4 meetings a year for this committee and more if needed. So I'll open up the floor to discussion. Councilor Restel.
Through you, Mr. Chair, just a question on the youth representative, and this is kind of going back to Madam Mayor's comment earlier about having youth on different committees, maybe. But is this youth going to be separate from the youth committee, or is it going to be a rep of the youth committee tied to this committee to integrate them?
I think it would be a good idea, once that youth committee is created, maybe they could appoint someone to this committee, perhaps their chair, or when they appoint their chair.
Yeah, because I know the mayor mentioned, kind of longer term, we're going to grow these as we go. But I think it's just my own opinion. I think it's good if we have those links between, because then when those youth committees or when the youth committee comes together, they'll have the opportunity, maybe it's almost like a portfolio system for the youth where they have the connection to this, or they have the connection to the library committee or wherever else they might, just to help them build their expertise and decisions or discussions around issues.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. That'd be something we could add into the youth advisory committee, that they would elect someone to sit on the recreation and culture committee as well.
It's kind of unrelated, but kind of related. So you can tell me I'm out of order if you like. But by the same token, like I said, with the library board, I agree with you. Like, I like the interconnectedness of having a hub and spoke where the youth from our committee are actually engaged in those other areas. And so when we look at things like the community safety and well-being plan that was adopted by council July of last year, there is a reference to implementation teams for that plan. And of course, that kind of dropped, but it's something that I'm kind of actively working on and reaching out to members there. And again, you could have a youth representative from our youth advisory committee doing community safety and well-being, and tying those all back together so that, I think the connections are important, and I think it's what makes the system work well. But that's my opinion. Thank you, Jane.
You were within order.
Okay, thank you.
Conseiller Gagné.
Mr. Chair, juste au sujet des jeunes représentants, oui, j'aimerais voir, à cause que c'est un groupe qui touche les arts, la culture, là, comme tout le groupe LGBTQ, pour avoir sa place dans ce comité ici. So, est-ce qu'il y a possibilité de réduire les adultes, comme 7 community members? Ou est-ce que les 8, excuse-moi, j'ai lu le groupe 7, 8 community members, ça pourrait être comme des gens de 14 à 18 aussi, comme si on a un intérêt. Ou c'est-tu des adultes qu'on parle de pour les 8?
It doesn't mention in this one that it would be specifically by ward for the 8. So I wonder maybe we would go with it because we need an odd number, right?
Ouais.
So we wouldn't be able to add.
Parce qu'on a nos Premières Nations qui pourraient être bien représentées ici pour la culture des arts. Ensuite de ça, pour Recreation, ben, ça pourrait être un autre jeune, comme, ou qu'on le rattache au comité de Youth Advisory aussi. Mais je pense qu'on n'a pas assez de jeunes sur ce comité ici, comme mon opinion personnelle. So, j'aimerais peut-être descendre, peut-être comme au lieu de 8 community members, peut-être aller à 6, puis mettre 3 représentants, Youth Representatives. Puis on pourrait dire qu'on aimerait avoir quelqu'un comme des Premières Nations, LGBTQ.
Comme essayer peut-être go through the Pride Committee and try and see if anyone from that committee would be willing to sit on this committee.
Ouais. Ou ça pourrait être des nouvelles personnes aussi là, qui sont plus intéressées. Tu sais, on parle de recreation, on a beaucoup pensé sport. On pourrait aller chercher quelqu'un dans le sport qui ne veut pas être dans le Youth Advisory, mais peut-être plus axé sur les sports. Peut-être qu'il serait voulant de participer sur ce comité-là aussi, ce qu'on a plus.
Mr. Chair, can I make a recommendation that might help us out with that thought is, the mayor talked about linking all of our committees. So these are advisory committees to council. The Youth Advisory Committee will advise council on youth matters, having an appointed member of the youth committee sitting on there. I see what you're saying, Councillor Gagné, with respect to having more voices there. But I think it's going to be important that any recommendation from the Recreation and Cultural Committee could be brought back for the Youth Advisory for them to look at the youth piece of any recommendation coming back for it to council. So these are all committees that advise council on matters specific to their committees. So I think it'll be important for us to ensure that that link is tight there between the youth committee and anything that relates to sports and youth and culture, and run everything through them. That might be one way of trying to get the inclusiveness and the representation and the youth spin on everything that this committee is going to recommend to this body here.
Yeah, okay, I understand what you mean. Mais moi, j'aimerais avoir au moins 2 gens, comme au moins il y a un buddy system. Ils vont peut-être avoir moins peu de parler, là, comme souvent, tu t'es force à parler, les plus jeunes. So, je pense qu'on aura au moins 2. So, j'aimerais peut-être voir descendre à 7 membres de la communauté, puis au moins 2 youth advisors sur le comité. Ça serait ma recommandation. Je pense que ça serait juste.
You'd still have your odd numbers. So
Yeah.
it's up to council to decide that.
En tout cas, c'est ma proposition pour le comité.
It's either we do that or we add 2, right? We jump up to 13, but I don't know when it becomes a little problematic. I thought you had your hand up.
No, I don't mind that idea at all. And perhaps as well, in the same way that we talked about adding the language around diversity, equity, and inclusion in the terms of reference for the Youth Advisory Committee. We do reference that here as well, so that as we're making our selections, we're guided by trying to trying to create an inclusive and well-rounded committee that does include First Nations representation, representation from other underrepresented groups.
So by a show of hands, would we be willing to go from 8 to 7 and add an extra youth, if that's what I'm understanding? Just by a show of hands. All right.
So 7 in brackets was right.
7. I feel like you knew. But now you have to change the number though.
Yeah, exactly.
And that will come back to us as well.
Yes.
That's it for the community services committee of the whole portion.
Thank you so much, Councillor Rivard. That was a lot of work for you tonight. And with that, we're going to move on to item 6 of the agenda, if Mr. Chairman is ready. Okay, so on to planning 6.1. Madam Clerk.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-09, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the date it is passed. Part of Lot 5, Concession B, being Part 1, Plan 36R14962, in the geographic township of Caldwell, being part of the traveled road known as Schmeyeringville Road in Verner.
There is a sketch attached for that. Would staff like to make any comment on this item? Any additional information or just as is? Any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you.
It is moved by Councillor Gagné and seconded by Councillor Pellerin. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-10, being a bylaw to accept, assume, and dedicate lands for public highway purposes, shall come into force and take effect on the date it is passed. Part of Lot 2, Concession 1, Part 2, Plan 36R14937, also in the geographic township of Caldwell, being part of the traveled road known as Chemin La Plage.
Okay, any questions or comments on this item? All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, and that's the end of planning for today. Number 7, we have correspondence and accounts, and just the approval of the council minutes from February 7th. Mr. Chairman.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Be it resolved that the minutes of the meeting of council held on February the 7th, 2023 be adopted as presented.
Okay, are there questions or comments on this item? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, and we move down to number 10 for new business. 10.1 is the approval of social media policy. Madam Deschamps.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Be it resolved that the social media policy be approved as presented.
Okay, so we discussed the social media policy last meeting in our committee of the whole. We read through it and there were some questions and stuff at that time. Seemed all good to go through with it. Does anybody have any additional comments at this time on the policy? Okay, all in favor? Thank you. Carried. Okay, and 10.2 is the approval of the amended stipend and honorarium policy. Madam Deschamps.
It is moved by Councillor Pellerin and seconded by Councillor Gagné. Be it resolved that the amendment to the stipend/honorarium policy be approved as presented.
Okay. Same thing again. We discussed this at length in committee of the whole. Any additional questions or comments on this? Okay, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, 10.3, amendment to the noise bylaw.
It is moved by Councillor Cochin and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-11, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 1999/75 as amended to control noise in the municipality of West Nipissing, be approved as presented.
Okay, so the amended policy is included in your package. Again, we discussed this in committee of the whole last meeting. Are there any questions or comments on this? Yeah, Councillor Paberi?
Yes, Madam Mayor, just, I was looking at that, like, this bylaw and the next one for motorized snow vehicle bylaw.
Mm-hmm.
In the past, it was okay because you had the West Nipissing Police in town, but will this be enforced by a bylaw officer or the OPP?
Oh, sorry.
Isn't it the traffic? With the bylaw officer, it's got something to do with the traffic. Would he be, like, how does a bylaw officer go after the snowmobile? I don't think it's his mandate. I don't know. I'm just asking.
I don't know.
Very sneakily. Yeah, you have to sneak up from behind.
Yeah.
Well, no, the whole thing is kind of, for this type of enforcement, is going to be problematic, but at least if we have it there, it's something that we would shoot for and will address. But if we need the assistance of our OPP friends to assist us on some of this, we will look and evolve it.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. To a vote, all in favor of amending the noise bylaw? Carried. Thank you. And Madam Ducharme, the follow-up one with the motorized snow vehicles?
It is moved by Councillor Crochet and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-12, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2011-65 to regulate the operation of motorized snow vehicles in the West Nipissing municipality, be approved as presented.
Any questions or comments on this amendment? Okay, sorry.
Sorry, I just had a quick question. So both the police service and the bylaw enforcement officer would enforce? It's just because I thought there was a moratorium with the OPP not enforcing or taking on any enforcement for bylaws.
Through you, Madam Mayor, in general, there's a moratorium on not taking over all of the bylaw enforcement as a policy.
Okay.
But where traffic is concerned in that, there could be some accommodations made.
Okay.
Obviously, we're not buying, unless that's an incentive to recruit other people, we're not buying a snowmobile for our bylaw enforcement officer. Might have missed it in the agenda or in the budget package, but I didn't see one. But yeah, so we're going to have to figure it out because you raised a very good point. It's going to be an interesting one to try and enforce.
Other questions or comments? Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay. And item 10.5 is the amendments to the traffic and parking bylaw that were discussed last meeting. Madam Ducharme.
It is moved by Councillor Tessier and seconded by Councillor Crochet. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-11, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2019-60 to regulate traffic and parking in the West Nipissing municipality, be approved as presented.
So can we just get a review of the changes that were made? So we had changes in regards to parking on Clark Street.
That is correct.
Thank you. We had changes in regards to
Set fines.
offsetting fines. Thank you.
And specifically a significant increase to the fine for overnight parking in winter months. She said there are no parking signs on the east side of Clark Street, and all of the rest of the set fines were increased from $25 to $50.
Any other questions in regards to this amendment? Okay, all in favor? Carried, thank you. We are. So the next item on the agenda, 12.1 for a mayor's report. I don't have a whole lot to say this week, except that having Family Day just passed, I was very impressed over the last couple of weeks at all the different events that were going on across the municipality. I had the opportunity to visit at the Field Winter Carnival, and it was a great day, and there was a lot of work put in by a lot of different people to make that fantastic. We had a meeting with our friends down at the CCL in Living last week, Mr. Barbeau and I, and they're overall doing some really great things in the community there with their events and really bringing in people from all over. And then this weekend, I had the opportunity to visit the museum, and I will say it again, if council members or members of our community haven't had a chance to visit the Sturgeon River House Museum lately, it really is worth the trip. The staff there has been doing an excellent job as far as enlivening all the exhibits. When I showed up at about noon, the parking lot was full. And they said at that point they'd already had about 160 people in. The event was running from 10 to 2. So I'm sure that by the time they finished, they had welcomed more than 300 residents for free programming there. And just like I say, the exhibit area has been refreshed and extraordinarily well done. And there was a lot of excitement both from the museum staff and from the staff from our community services department that was on hand to support as well. So there was really good energy, and it's really encouraging to see, these initiatives to bring people out and the work our staff is doing, the work that's being done by different volunteer groups in different parts of the municipality. And so that's really all I'd like to share this week. But there are good things. And I know that our communications team tries to keep our residents informed of those events. So, I encourage you all and all of our residents to check out some of the things that are happening, because I think it's really kind of exciting. So that's all I will say for this week. And on that note, we will move to the most exciting part of the meeting, 13.1. To adopt the confirmatory bylaw.
It is moved by Councillor Cochane and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that bylaw number 2023-14, being a bylaw of the West Nipissing Municipality to confirm the proceedings of council at its meeting held on the 21st of February 2023 shall come into force and take effect on the day it is passed.
All in favor? And Madame Duchamp.
It is moved by Councillor Cochane and seconded by Councillor Tessier. Be it resolved that the meeting of council held on February 21st, 2023 be adjourned.
All in favor? And with that, the meeting